the Hur interview is back in the news now because Axios, that's where Alex Thompson is working, released the tapes. Excerpts first on Friday, I think it was, and then the full tapes came on Saturday, of Joe Biden interviewing with special counsel Robert Hur, who was investigating Biden's retention of classified documents from his time as a U.S. Senator and his time as vice president, and was very much looking into potential criminal charges against him, same as they brought against Trump for withholding some classified documents post-presidency. And the Hur report eventually concluded that he would not bring charges against Biden, even though he had him. He had him dead to rights on retaining the classified information because he was a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. That's what Hur believed a jury would conclude. And thus it would make this a difficult case to convict. And so he moved on. So he, rather than releasing the tapes, Hur, he released a statement describing what his conclusions were. I think he did it, basically, but I'm not going to charge him, and here's why. And the left had an absolute meltdown. And to look back on their meltdowns now that we've heard the audio, I mean, we heard some of the transcript. We had been given some of the transcript from Republicans who got it right at the time. But now hearing it ourselves is something else. And so you look back now on the Democrat reaction, now having heard the Biden tapes and how he sounded, which I'll play for you. And they look so foolish. They look, I mean, I know it's true, but it's just like such partisan hacks. The hackery is just in your throat, and it's inescapable. So those people, I guarantee this week, are going to go with let's be respectful. Now's not the time, because they're in the wake of a different kind of crisis, right? It's like the Biden staff and his aides, and yes, top Democrats are in the crosshairs in this book, but all the people who ran cover after yet another one of the big clues we had that Biden was infirm, the Hur report, look completely foolish. They look absolutely absurd. And so let's get into the Hur interview. All right. Biden sat down with Hur, and one of the things that was brought up was his son, Beau, and when Beau died. And Robert Hur came out after and said he couldn't remember when Beau died. And this is one of the reasons why I concluded he has a poor memory. After the Hur report was released, Biden came out in a very rare, I think it might have been a one-time evening press conference to attack the report. I'm going to do this in reverse order. And accused Hur of bringing up the issue of his son. Indignant, like, well, how could you do that to a suffering father? Here was Biden on February 8th, 2024 in SOT 12.
In addition, I know there's some attention paid to some language in the report about my recollection of events. There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business. Let me tell you something. Some of you have commented, I wear since the day he died, every single day, the rosary he got from Our Lady of every Memorial Guadalupe. Day we hold a service remembering him, attended by friends and family and the people who loved him. I don't need anyone to remind me when he passed away or passed away.
Not true. Here's SOT 7 from the Hur interview.
Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period. I hadn't walked away from the idea that I might run for office again. If I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so What was happening, though, 1 month ago died. May 30th, 2015. Was it 2015 he died?
Maybe 2015.
I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think that was
That's right, Mr. President.
It's unbelievable, Charlie.
Yeah. It should end forever the public reputation of Kamala Harris, that when Robert Hur published his report, she came out and made the statement that she did in that indignant
We have that.
tone.
Let me just play it, and then I'll let you pick it up.
Yeah.
Here she is.
I have been privileged and proud to serve as Vice President of the United States with Joe Biden as President of the United States. And what I saw of that report last night, I believe is, as a former prosecutor, the comments that were made by that prosecutor, gratuitous, inaccurate, and inappropriate. So the way that the president's demeanor in that report was characterized could not be more wrong on the facts and clearly politically motivated, gratuitous. And so I will say that when it comes to the role and responsibility of a prosecutor in a situation like that, we should expect that there would be a higher level of integrity than what we saw.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Well, I certainly agree that we should have a higher level of integrity. I just don't think that Robert Hur was guilty of violating that standard. I mean, that is pathological lying, and anyone who hears a single word that comes out of Kamala Harris's mouth from here on in should know that she's capable of that sort of performance in the pursuit of whatever she wants to achieve that day. That is just extraordinary. It was extraordinary at the time. If anything, Robert Hur downplayed it out of respect, and probably because he understood that his role was not to end the presidency of Joe Biden, which he could have done if he had decided to sacrifice himself, smuggled the tapes out and released them to the press. That would have been it for Joe Biden. But he didn't do that. He wrote a fairly kind report, which stayed within the bounds of the remit that he had been given. I mean, Joe Biden is as bad as Harris in the first clip you played. He is trying to find a way to escape the fact that he is unfit for office, and he is doing it with mawkish bullying. And I don't feel thrilled about having to talk about this, Megyn, because it must be terrible to lose a son. But what he is doing there, which I'm afraid he did quite a lot in his presidency, is using the memory of his son and the real hurt that his son's death created to get himself out of a political jam. And I would not be doing my job if I didn't acknowledge that, if I gave in to the attempt. Over and over and over again, Biden inappropriately talked about Beau's death. And he did so there, and in the process, he slimed and slandered Robert Hur and tried to make her look like some sort of dishonest, partisan, motivated hack. And really what had happened was that Joe Biden had been put in front of a tape recorder with no one there to edit his words or twist the circumstances or cover for his inadequacies. And he had given another person irrefutable evidence of his infirmity. And let's not pretend that what is on that tape, I listened to a lot of it over the weekend, let's not pretend that what is on that tape was not echoed in cabinet meetings, in one-on-ones with senators and others. I was told off the record by a senator in about 2023 that Biden's performances in some military meetings that he was obliged to have were alarming. I mean, this was not a unique event. So it's scary, but what is just as scary, I think, is the confidence and the indignation with which both Biden and Harris and many of their acolytes in the press and the Democratic Party tried to bury it and cast it as a lie when it was anything but. It's a disgrace. It's a scandal. It's a massive chapter in American history that should not be forgotten or bullied away.
Here's another example of it, Rich, where Adam Schiff, who was one of the main villains in the wake of the Hur report, went after Hur, who testified before Congress on all of this on March 12th, 2024, SOT 15.
You don't gratuitously do things to prejudice the subject of an investigation when you're declining to prosecute. You don't gratuitously add language that you know will be useful in a political campaign. You were not born yesterday. You understood exactly what you were doing. It was a choice. You certainly didn't have to include that language. You could have said, vis-a-vis the documents that were found at the university, the president did not recall. There is nothing more common. You know this. I know this. There is nothing more common with a witness of any age when asked about events that are years old to say, I do not recall.
Congressman, what you are suggesting is that I shape, sanitize, omit portions of my reasoning and explanation to the Attorney General for political reasons.
No, I suggest that you not shape your report for political reasons, which is what you did.
That did not happen, Congressman. That did not happen.
And just to close it out, here's a couple more examples of how Biden sounded in there. Let's just do this one, SOT 8, on him not being able to remember when he was vice president.
Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why do I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, January of 2017.
Okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in.
Right.
January.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Correct. And in 2017, Bo had passed, and this is personal. The genesis of the book and the title, Promise Me Dad, was I know you're all close with your sons and daughters, but Bo was like my right arm, and that was my left. These guys were a year and a day apart, and they could finish each other's sentences. And Bo, I used to go home on the train in the period that I was still in the Senate. Anyway.
My God, Rich.
Yeah, it's so maddening. It's so symptomatic of the whole story, because the guy who was doing his job and doing it with integrity was slimed and lied about. And part of the point of lying about him is that he couldn't respond, right? In the congressional hearing he did, but otherwise he's mute as the prosecutor. And if you read the transcript or listen to the tapes, he described Biden as a well-meaning old man. Well, certainly Hur was a well-meaning prosecutor. This isn't a killer, as Donald Trump often puts it. He wasn't a shark. He wasn't trying to nail Joe Biden to the wall. He was gently trying to elicit this information from a meandering old man who couldn't come back to the point very often or remember basic dates. And it's Hur who's often saying, well, why don't we take a break, Mr. President? So he's not trying to nail him to the wall at all. And it's really a public service to have this audio out belatedly, because transcripts very often don't entirely do justice to a video or an audio recording. But this transcript is miles away from what the audio portrays, right? Because you can't get the length of the pauses in the transcripts. You can't get how painful it is to listen as that grandfather clock is tick, tock, tick, tock, and he's saying nothing. And then he comes back with a whispery voice, and he's bringing up Bo, right? Hur's not bringing up Bo. And then very often he can't complete his thoughts. So he just says, anyway, and stops.
This July, speaking of resets, there's a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio. This bloc of emerging superpowers, including China, Russia, India, and Iran, are meeting with the goal of displacing the U.S. dollar as the global currency. They're calling this the Rio Reset. As BRICS nations push forward with their plans, some worry global demand for U.S. dollars will decrease, bringing down the value of dollars in your savings. While this transition will not happen overnight, the Rio Reset could mark a pivotal moment. So learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting MK to the number 989898. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.